Williams. But my point is, 6 games is enough. I look at Bo Nix. He is Drew Brees. Accurate. He'll get in Sean Payton's face. He's mobile. Drew Brees was mobile early in his career, much more than later in his career. I look at Bo Nix. Does he have a big arm? No, Brees didn't throw it deep well, especially in the latter part of his career. Bo Nix didn't have a big arm. He got a lower ceiling. He's smaller than like a Lamar Jackson. He's not as twitchy, but he's super mobile, much more mobile than you think, accurate, and he's a leader, not a follower. And he, by the way, Caleb's got more talent and Jaden Daniels has more talent. That Denver roster, Vegas had him over-under as a 5-win team. So he's having to elevate in a division with Herbert and Mahomes, having to elevate a really average roster. And then there's Caleb Williams.
Yeah. So I really wanted to isolate this clip and talk Bo Nix. Because we know Colin is super high on Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and as am I. And I think this is, first off, I really think we need to stop at this idea of Bo Nix not having a big arm or being undersized. He's not undersized, right? He's not 5'3". So we need to stop with that. And this big arm, at this point, I need some clarification of how we're classifying a big arm. Honestly, because it's just I don't this idea people are acting like Bo Nix is essentially what Peyton Manning was his last year, where the dude couldn't couldn't throw the ball more than 10 yards. So I don't really even understand at this point what we mean by saying that Bo Nix doesn't have a big arm. I guess are we saying, does he have a big arm? He doesn't have a big arm relative to maybe a Josh Allen or something, or a Joe Burrow. Okay, I'm totally okay with that, but I guess this idea that he can't I don't know, push the ball down the field or can't get some some velocity on the ball, I don't get it. I don't. But I think it's also a really, really important point for people to look at when looking at Bo Nix's progress and his level of play so far, because we are now seeing Jaden Daniels take off and Caleb take off, and they definitely have some talent. Caleb has the most talent around him and the best defense, without a doubt, which then will also help him get him extra possessions, better field position, right? Just all that type of stuff. Jaden, I think at this point right now, probably has the best offensive mind with Cliff Kingsbury. It's not to say that he's a better coach than Sean Payton, but Cliff Kingsbury is just, he understands the modern NFL unbelievable right now, right? I mean, his approach and play calling with Jaden, I think he's just set up best to maximize that. Will he be that way as a head coach? That remains to be seen. We saw what he did with Kyler and the Cardinals, but that was a specific time. And now you have Nix, who has the best head coach and offensive mind, so you're going to get a more complete 360 in terms of coaching, and obviously a wealth of experience, something that Cliff Kingsbury doesn't have and Shane Waldron doesn't have for that matter. But he's lacking the talent around him. And that's what, when Colin was saying Nix has the least amount of talent, he's mainly saying talent in terms of roster construction. And so, yeah, it's going to take a minute or two to really see what Bo Nix can do, because I'm already impressed what he's been doing already right now. And this roster is lacking, right? It absolutely is lacking. And yet it's already ahead schedule. They're already doing better than what Vegas. And I made a video months ago when their over-under was first released, and I was like, no way, this is ridiculous. How little do they respect the Broncos? Is this more about them not respecting the Broncos? Is this them not respecting Bo Nix? What is this? Because it was absurdly low, and they're about to pass it in the next few weeks, right? So they're already exceeding expectations, but they got to make moves. They got to build up this roster, whether through free agency or through the draft. And so it's going to take a minute or two to really be able to show what the true vision of this team is and what Bo Nix will be able to do. I do believe to really maximize Bo Nix, you're going to need some dudes around him, right? You're going to need a team around him. And I think Bo Nix, and this is kind of what I said similar about Brock Purdy, is that Bo Nix will be a maximizer, not necessarily an elevator, but a maximizer. He'll be able to maximize the talent around him, maybe not necessarily elevate everybody from the ashes like, say, a Patrick Mahomes, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like there's only so many of those elevators in the history of the NFL, quite frankly. And so it's like, if you give Bo Nix some talent, he will be able to get to work and he will flawlessly execute. Right, that's to me what makes Purdy kind of so special, is that you say what you will about Purdy, but like, he minimizes his mistakes. He executes the offense exactly as it's asked of him. And there's plenty of quarterbacks that can't do that. There's plenty of quarterbacks that cannot execute the offense that they are asked to do. We see that. I won't even name names, but we have quarterbacks in the NFL right now who've gone to new teams who struggle with that. Right? They just do. When it's laid out for them, they just can't do it. They miss throws, misreads, make mistakes, make the wrong type of throw at the wrong moment. Right? They do that way more than you would want them to do. Bo Nix, you give him the situation, you give him the tools, you give him the people around him, and he will get that job done. And that's why it's going to take a little bit of time. He's not going to be as resilient. And I don't even mean that in like an ultimate negative way, especially because his mobility has shown to make him more resilient, and therefore the Broncos more resilient. Like he's been doing things that everybody was expecting Caleb Williams to do, and he was doing it before Caleb. So, it's like, that's why I kind of take somewhat issues with this idea of like, well, Bo Nix, he's like, yeah, he's not as big as Lamar. And it's like, okay, like what? Like, what are we saying? He's not as big as Ben Roethlisberger. It's like, okay, fine, sure. I mean, so, okay. So, his physicality, his speed, his strength, like there's nothing limiting him physically. And that's why I don't see his arm as a limiting factor either. So I'm not really entirely sure. And Mark Schlereth kind of talked about that in terms of having like a big arm and stretching the field and pushing the ball down the field. And he was just kind of saying like, in the reality of the situation in the course of an NFL game, like it's such like it's such an overvalued aspect, because it's like, if I told you could throw the ball 5, 10, 15 yards consistently with pinpoint perfect accuracy and timing and anticipation, no question about it, right? That's your true superpower, but you really just don't have great accuracy 30, 40 yards down the field. Or let's say you just can't even throw the ball that far. A made up scenario, obviously. You just can't even throw the ball that far, right? You would still be a deadly quarterback. I understand the defenses would understand that, and so it would take some, some extra game planning, but you would be deadly, right? It's like baseball, I think, highlights this better as well, where it's like you could never hit a home run, double or triple, but half the time you hit a single, you would be the greatest hitter and greatest baseball player in the history of the world. You can't hit doubles, you can't hit triples, can't hit home runs, but you get a single 50% of the time, you will be the greatest hitter in the history of the Major League Baseball. So this idea that this one extra power that, like, if you can't throw the ball 50 yards down the field with amazing accuracy, like, they're fun, they're exciting, they can break the game wide open, but it's like not the thing that's most important. And again, I think Bo Nix can do that. I think Bo Nix can stretch the field and throw the ball. That's why I used kind of that extra, enhanced silly example, because I don't understand like the constant trying to, and I know Colin's not doing that. Colin is obviously, he's been pro Bo Nix from day one. He's obviously a big Sean Payton fan, and he's been pulling for the Broncos. But that is a criticism that I hear, and I heard it all off season, all throughout the draft, all going into this season. And it's like, it still doesn't land for me, right? Even after now watching weeks of this, I'm still trying to figure out, like, what are they really trying to say? Because it just doesn't make sense to me. But I think Bo Nix, I think we're going to be able to really see what Bo Nix is capable of doing next season. I think they still have a chance to continue to win, and if they get lucky with some health and stuff, and if they can establish the run game better, then I think that the Broncos could be fighting for a playoff spot. Like, I have not wavered on that initial prediction of them competing for a playoff spot. I think they can. They obviously have to iron some stuff out, but we can see Bo Nix continuing to get more and more comfortable, and I think you're going to continue to see that progress. And it's I think the future is definitely bright for Bo Nix, and honestly, all these quarterbacks. This has been such an awesome draft for quarterbacks. I think J.J. McCarthy will end up having a lot of success, as well as Penix. So I think ultimately this draft from a quarterback perspective was truly a grand slam, and I'm excited to see Nix be able to really finally prove his worth, because I think he's proving it to a degree, but we're not really able to really see the special just yet, because his special is going to be a little bit more reliant on the people around him. Whereas Jaden and Caleb's special, especially because a lot of what makes them special is some of their mobility aspect and their off the script throws. We can kind of see that a little bit more, but they also have the pieces already around them and the coaching staff to be able to really make, for us to really see that and highlight that. So Bo Nix is definitely going to have a little bit more patience in terms of that, or fans at the very least will have to have a little bit more patience, but I am 1000% confident that it will come. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos and how he's shaping up compared to these other rookies? Do you think that they'll continue to still be able to be competitive throughout the season, or do you think they've kind of already peaked and are kind of just making do? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.